It's our independence day. We're here to get our country back.
So we voted Remain, but now it's here. We have no choice, so we're going to get behind it, and we're just going to carry on as normal. And we trade within the EU as a business, so we just got to find a way to do it and get through this.
And I mean, this is important. It's important for everybody, whether you're here in England and Britain and Scotland, Wales and Ireland, or whether you're in France or Italy. Everybody needs their country and their culture.
It's a real backward move for the UK. I'm, again, very sad about it. So
it's just a change. It's not a celebration. It wasn't something that we wanted, I wanted, or we wanted, I think. But it's happening, so we want to embrace it and then look forward.
This is just the start of it. This is a trial run because the worst day will be after the transition year. So the 31st of December will actually be far worse than today.
The UK may be leaving the European Union, but there'll be that transition period until the end of this year. Most people will notice little change for the time being, but tough negotiations are about to begin on the UK's future relationship with the European Union.
It's a race against time. The UK and EU have until the end of 2020 to define their new post-Brexit relationship, and there's still a long way to go. So what are the issues that need sorting?
Trade is the biggest one, I think, the trade relation between the two. How are we going to do trade with each other? Are we going to have tariffs, or are we not going to have tariffs in the way that we exchange goods and services? That's going to be, I think, the biggest thing to do.
A successful outcome on this key issue will depend on the UK agreeing to the EU's calls for a level playing field. The EU wants the UK to stick to EU rules, out of fear that the UK will lower its standards or profit from unfair advantages. But for British negotiators, being freed of EU rules is one of the main drivers for Brexit, so talks will be tough.
In my view, the EU has asymmetrically bigger power when it comes to trade. Each country in the EU will be losing one market. The UK will be losing 27 markets. There is one element where I think the UK has got perhaps more of a say, and that is in the financial markets, and that is basically London.
The city has served as a major financial hub for the whole of the EU. As the EU doesn't want to lose that expertise, the UK could use the City of London as a bargaining chip in the negotiations. And then there's the issue of fishing rights. That could be a stumbling stone on the bumpy road to Brexit. Taking back control of British waters was a key Brexit campaign pledge. But the UK may have to compromise if it doesn't want the issue to scupper chances of finalising a deal with the EU.
The UK leaving, in my view, was unjustified, and therefore I believe that it's going to be at an economic cost for the UK. So the closer we can keep when it comes down to the way we do trade, for example, the better it's going to be for both of us.
It's going to be an extremely tight race to get things done by the end of the year.
I'm joined by David McAllister, Brexit coordinator for the European Parliament, MEP. Mr. McAllister, where do you see the red lines in the upcoming negotiations?
Well, the negotiations are going to start, presumably at the beginning of March. We're now waiting for the Commission to present the draft mandate. Then the European Parliament will adopt the resolution in the middle of February, and then finally the Council will adopt the guidelines on the 25th of February. We're under time pressure. The UK government has announced that they will, under no circumstances, want to prolong the transition period. That means the United Kingdom will definitely leave the single market and the customs union on the 31st of December. That leaves us with about 8 to 9 months to negotiate our future relations. We will have to prioritise, that's for sure. We can't cover all issues in this short time. Our priorities are, on the one hand, trade relations, and on the other hand, security cooperation.
Now, the divorce deal was already difficult enough. How difficult would you say, or what do you expect from the negotiations that are upcoming? Will they be even more difficult?
Well, of course, negotiations are always challenging, and both sides have different interests, but the UK government and the European Union have announced that they want to begin these negotiations in a spirit of goodwill, mutual respect and understanding. Both sides want to have a solid foundation for our future relations, and Britain is leaving the European Union, but the UK will remain our NATO ally, our close political partner in many international organisations, and also The UK is an important trade partner for us, just as the single market is the most important trade partner for the United Kingdom. So we all have a joint interest that we should have solid, positive future relations. But one thing is clear. A country which leaves the EU, the single market and the customs union, will no longer be in the same position as a member state.
Now, should a deal be made by all means, or would you say there are concessions which the EU should not make?
In negotiations, in the end, you must always have the will to find a compromise and a consensus. And we have always respected UK position, but UK positions have political consequences. If you voluntarily leave the single market and the customs union, you will have to face with some of the consequences. We want to have as little friction in our mutual trade as possible, but the precondition for this is a level playing field. We want a fair competition between the UK and the European Union. That's why we will insist on a level playing field. Our three principles are: the integrity of the single market and the customs union cannot be violated. Secondly, the institutions of the European Union need to be functional. And thirdly, we are very much interested in keeping the four freedoms of a single market together. The four freedoms of a single market come as a package. They cannot be divided.
In defending those principles, how concerned are you about a blame game from the part of the UK if things shouldn't work out?
We haven't even started the negotiations yet, and we should both be optimistic in London as in Brussels. Let's get this new relationship done, just as we got the withdrawal agreement done. Both sides have an interest that we will continue to closely cooperate. And the single market is the most important market for UK services and goods. So it's also in the British interest to have good relations with the European single market and the customs union. In the end, our new relationship could be the closest the European Union has with a third country when it comes to the width on the one hand and the depth of our cooperation on the other hand. We're not only talking about trade, we're talking about security, we're talking about energy, we're talking about space, we're talking about fisheries, just to name important areas. The UK and the European Union are so interconnected, and that's no surprise after 47 years of British membership in the EU. Let's get it done for the benefit of the people and the businesses.
Mr. McAllister, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Der Brexit ist ja für zukünftige Beziehungen. Das verstehen wir natürlich auch, glaube ich, nicht. Der UK Coordinator. Brexit.